my little town.
Welcome back, City of Santa Clarita and Santa Clarita Valley residents. This is Perry Smith here at the City of Santa Clarita Spotlight. In the studio with me is Mayor Bob Kellar and City Manager Ken Striplin. We are talking about all things Santa Clarita and looking, just to continue where we left off before the break, looking at the lobbying efforts of Santa Clarita. There's a couple more issues that I wanted to touch on while I have you guys in the studio, and one of them is Whitaker Burmite. There's been a lot of talk about that, and I think there's also a lot of confusion as far as what the status of that is. City Manager Ken, can you talk to me a little bit about what's going on there with the Whitaker Burmite lot, and just kind of give people a little reference background. Where is that exactly?
Sure. The Whitaker Burmite property is about 1,000 acres. That's literally what we refer to as somewhat of the donut hole, because it's in the center of the city. So it's basically all of the property behind the Saga Speedway, in between the Circle J community and the Center Point Business Park. So it's about 1,000 acres of open space right now that was a former munitions site and has some level of contamination from rocket fuel or perchlorate. And so the property, although it's 1,000 acres, only about 10% of it, or about 100 acres or so, actually has some level of contamination on it. And this, go ahead, sir.
Sorry, no. And where is that? Do we know exactly where is it confined to one area, or is it?
No. It's all been identified and mapped out. There's several locations throughout the property, so there's not one area that is only affected. There are several areas within the property. But the property currently is going through the cleanup phase, which is overseen by the state agency, the Department of Toxic and Substance Control. And so it is being cleaned up. There's an insurance policy that is paying for the cleanup. The first, what is referred to as an OU1 solvent, it's been broken into about 7 different planning areas that they'll clean up. The first one has been primarily finished, and so the work is being done now on the design and how they're going to deal with the latter parts of cleanup. So it is being cleaned right now, and we continue to work to expedite that cleanup.
How many phases do we have of that? Do we know? And is there, once the cleanup is completed, can it be used for what type of purposes are we talking about?
There are several phases. I believe there are 6 different OUs, or what are referred to as operating units, and then I think the 7th one deals with the groundwater, or the water that exists that may be contaminated or affected by the site. So once all of the cleanup is completed, the property would be put back into reuse or into productive use. And right now, there is a development agreement on there right now that calls for both housing and commercial, as well as a series of critical infrastructure for the city of Santa Clarita. And that is certainly another reason why we have such a heightened interest in making sure that this cleanup gets done, and it gets done in an expedited fashion, as we have 2 or 3 major roadways that traverse through that property and help really satisfy or bring together the circulation element for the city.
Now, is that city property, or is that privately owned land?
There's 1,000 acres up there that is privately owned.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. But, the city would maybe like to look at some of that land for some of its purposes? Is that?
Absolutely. I think, the council has always had a very great interest in making sure that that is planned in an appropriate manner, and something that reflects the needs and the desires of the community of Santa Clarita. So there's a lot of open space that I would imagine would continue to be there, but there's also a lot of ideas of what could happen in that property, because it really is a rare opportunity to plan something that can have a significant impact on the community.
And we only have a little bit of time left, but I would, if we could, talk a little bit about the chloride issue. Mayor Kellar, I know you've been working on that. Can you kind of talk to me about where we're at with the chloride plant or no chloride plant? What's the status there?
And thank you for asking. It continues to be an issue for us, and as you know, if certain requirements are left in place on the city, it potentially can cost individual taxpayers in our community a rather significant amount of money. We're talking about figures that have been bannered about from $200 to $225 million to have a facility built to take the chloride out of our wastewater, if you will, as it makes its way to Ventura and into the ocean. The farmers in that area complain that there's too much salt and it's affecting their crops. I will just tell you that the city is extremely engaged, along with the LA County Sanitation District, that we're all working together on this matter, try to come up with a realistic and responsible course of action, and one that's not going to just absolutely bankrupt our families. So it's a big issue for us, and we'll continue to do all we can.
And hopefully one that would avoid another stormwater fee type situation where we're paying a
They just keep coming at us, don't they?
They do. A lot of bills to pay, as they say. And so the issues right now would be maybe looking at a solution to the problem that doesn't involve building an expensive treatment plant?
Well, we're certainly trying to come up with a plan that's going to be satisfactory. We're having to satisfy another state entity, if you will, called the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and they're the ones that set the standard as to what will be acceptable or not acceptable in the amount of chloride in the wastewater. We're trying to come up with something that we feel that can be managed and doable and not, once again, cost just an extraordinary sum of money.
And we'll certainly be watching that situation a little more closely as it breaks. We'll be back. That was the City of Santa Clarita Spotlight Show at your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Thank you, Mayor Kellar and City Manager Ken Striplin, for coming in and giving your time to talk a little bit about Santa Clarita issues.
Been a pleasure.
My pleasure.